I tell people all the time, just keep an open mind and an open heart because you just don't know what doors will open.
Welcome to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast, a weekly podcast providing career and creative inspiration to help you build a purpose-filled life. If you're interested in tapping into your creative potential, pursuing a career with passion, and building on your biggest and best resource, yourself, please join me on this path. I'm your host, Nancy Moore, and I want you to know that I'm on this journey with you. So let's get started. Before we jump into this episode, I'd like to take a minute to let you know about my upcoming live events for women called Conversations with Passion and Purpose. The live events are meant for women, and they'll include entrepreneurs, change makers, young professionals, and college-age women, in an opportunity for them to come together in a space that will inspire, uplift, and generate community while promoting networking and support through connections in a small group atmosphere. To learn about future and upcoming events, make sure that you are following me on social media, Sharing Passion and Purpose on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, and at Passion Sharing on Twitter. I will also be sending out emails, so if you want to go to sharingpassionandpurpose.com and sign up for Nancy's Nudge of Encouragement, that is a way that I connect with the community and send out positivity, and also it will keep you in the loop of upcoming events. So I hope that you join me there as well. Now, here's the episode. Heather Matheson has built a sweet business providing peace, love, and cookies, which is also appropriately the name of her business, to the Tulsa area. She started her business as a home bakery and quickly outgrew that space with her yummy cookie recipes that are baked fresh daily. With a background in social work and her business looking for a new location, it didn't take long for someone to connect her with family and children's services in Tulsa, and the results couldn't be sweeter. They had a commercial kitchen that they used for teaching food service skills to people in their programs, and that's exactly what Heather needed. Her employees are all part of the Women in Recovery program, and as she admits, she has built more than a business. It's an early morning therapy session mixed with mutual connection, support, and encouragement for other women who are a part of her team. The result of this winning combination includes women who are building their lives to become better and more productive for themselves, their children, and society while breaking cycles of poverty, abuse, and incarceration. So I can't wait for you to hear this conversation with Heather Matheson. Heather, I had the opportunity to interview you, but it was so many years ago about this cookie business, Peace, Love, and Cookies, prior to the podcast. And I invited you back because it's always stuck with me, the heart that you have for what you're doing and how great it is. So I wanted to share that with my listeners. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. And thank you for having me back because a lot has changed over the years. So I think this is great to have a little update.
Yeah, good. I can't wait to hear all of that. So just out of curiosity, what time did you start this morning?
Well, this morning was one of the mornings I pick up. I always pick up any employee that doesn't have transportation.
Okay.
So pickup was at 4:30 this morning, and I picked up 2 of my employees. The others can drive, and we were starting our day at 4:45.
Okay.
So
wow.
we start early. We typically try not to start earlier than 4:30, but during the holidays, it's 4 a.m. is a regular.
Okay.
For about a month.
Yeah. Well, and we'll talk about why you start so early and the baking situation that you have and the employees that you work with and the opportunities that you offer. But let's just start by talking about your cookie business and how that began.
So my business is called Peace, Love, and Cookies, which I started a little over 10 years ago. And it's one of those things where it just organically kind of evolved. I had been a medical social worker for about 20 years and had not been working in the field for a couple of years because I was full-time raising my 3 sons, and went through a major life change. I had a divorce after a 24-year marriage. So pretty traumatic, and at the same time, it's funny how these very difficult transitions really force you to look at your life, and which is what I did. Like, I really looked at, okay, things are going to be different now, so what's important and what do I want to do? My children have always been my highest priority. I have 3 sons, so that was not going to change. But I definitely needed to be working, and I knew that social work was not something for me anymore. That is just, I had the burnout that many get. And a good friend of mine really encouraged me to do something that I love, which is cooking. And I actually started cooking for friends and neighbors, and they would pay me to cook for them. And that happened for about a year. And then somebody said, your cookies are amazing. I really think you could do something with that. And I'd never thought of that. So again, I tell people all the time, just keep an open mind and an open heart, because you just don't know what doors will open, but you got to listen. You kind of have to listen to the universe. So on a whim, I took this person's advice, and I thought, okay, nobody in town makes and delivers a fresh baked product. So that's where I'm going to start. And that's kind of how I started. I'm blessed with good friends who know more than I do about a lot of things. I could cook, but I didn't know how to do the legal paperwork. I didn't know how to make designs and figuring out how I was going to package it and how this whole thing was going to work. So I leaned into people that I trusted and started this business called Peace, Love, and Cookies. But one thing from the very beginning, and I'm sure that has something to do with my social work background, I knew from the beginning that I wanted to have a giving back component to it. That was really important to me. And I've told my minister this, but something really crazy happened once when I was in the designing process, thinking about my business, and I was sitting through, I go to All Souls Unitarian. I was sitting through a church service, and on that day, they were talking about the A to Z's of life. And they went through the alphabet and talked about, what was important. And on the Z, it was give zealously. And hearing that really sparked something in my brain, and I thought, this is my opportunity. This is how I can have a business but also give back. And I kind of really thought about how I wanted to do that. And at the time, I picked a program called the Oklahoma Center for Community and Justice, and they have an elementary school program called Different and the Same that I love. I love what they stand for. And I decided I would give 10% of my sales to that business, which is what I did. And people started ordering cookies, and the word started to spread. It started very small. And within about a year, I couldn't handle this out of my own home anymore. It was growing. And so here was my next big obstacle. What do I do next? And I just put an email out to everybody I know. And I said, I am looking for a commercial kitchen at this point. Does anyone have any suggestions? Does anyone know any place that would let me come and bake? And that's when everything changed. I got an email from the director of Women in Recovery, and the heading said, Best Kitchen in Tulsa. She had heard about me through somebody, and she and Gail Lapidus invited me to come and tour the Women in Recovery program, which I wasn't even familiar with at the time. And they have this amazing kitchen on site. They always knew they wanted some type of social entrepreneurship to partner with them, and I kind of fit the bill for them. So here I now have this commercial kitchen I can use early in the morning because they use it during the day for their program. And I also then had the opportunity to hire employees because the women in the program needed jobs, first jobs. I was kind of a perfect fit for them because we do bake early in the morning, and then it doesn't interfere with their program. So that's how that actually began. It's just, it was not anything I sat down and just decided this is what I'm going to do. It was really a result of listening, honestly, just listening. And I'm still listening. Like I don't know where this will go next. Out of this program, we picked up kind of another thing that we do for Ediblend Cafe here in Tulsa. Wonderful, wonderful place. They needed somebody local to make all of their granola. They wanted a healthy granola. So now we produce all of their granola too. So there are some days that that's all we do is bake granola. So yeah, we have cookies, we have granola. The cookies are baked fresh in the morning and then delivered all over Tulsa. But over the years, the other piece that's come about, I now have like a portable cart, like a pop-up. I've got quite a few places in Tulsa that like to have me on a regular basis. So about 3 or 4 days a week, I am set up somewhere selling direct to the public. Different office buildings in town, Williams-Sonoma, Lululemon, Southwoods Nursery, Warren Clinic Tower, MAPCO. There are several places that like me to be there. And so it's really helped me to grow my business and to employ more women. I generally have 6 or 7 women at a time who are employees of mine. So
okay,
that's how that happened.
That's so cool. Yeah. So over this time, I know you're pouring into the women, but the opportunity when somebody gets out of, a bad situation. And so is it women in recovery? So it'd be prison.
So the Women in Recovery program is an alternative to prison.
Okay.
For women who are serving time for nonviolent drug-related crimes. Mm-hmm. And they have to be ordered into the program by a judge. So they don't just take people who come off the street. Mm-hmm. These are people who are already in the system, either serving time or facing time, sometimes up to 30 years, even life sentences. But again, they're nonviolent but drug-related crimes. So this program is a treatment program that's really intensive, and that's why it is so successful, because it's 18 months long where they really get what they need. It's not just recovery from drug abuse, it's also educating them, helping them to get their GED and further education, giving them job skills, giving them tons and tons of hours of therapy, mm-hmm. giving them parenting courses, teaching them how to make a budget, how to pay their bills. By the time the women get to the point where they graduate from the program, if they graduate successfully, they go back to court where they are resentenced. And so often they get probation instead of time, and fees drastically reduce. As you can imagine, the fees they rack up in court fees are things that are so impossible mm-hmm. for them to actually pay over time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So those who successfully graduate are living independently, working full time, many times raising their children. They've reunited with children, and they're living a clean life, and the recidivism rate is very low. So it's a very successful program. It's a hard program. Women learn quickly that prison is often easier than this. They really hold their feet to the fire. There's a lot of responsibilities that come with this program. It's very structured, and a lot of the women have trouble with that in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But I'm often their first employer because it's very part-time. After they've been in the program for several months, they are required to start earning some money. And there's a lot of partner agencies in Tulsa that hire the women, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of a first employer, because it's maybe they might put in 10 hours in the week, which is about all they could do, and then be committed to their program full time. So it gives me the opportunity to still use my social work skills, because what has occurred that I was not expecting, but it seems to be a common theme, it is a very therapeutic setting. The women who work for me and who stay with me tell me over and over and over, they don't come in the kitchen because they love to get up early, and some of them don't even need that job anymore because they've moved on to full-time work. They come there because they are with like-minded women who are on the same path. And many of them will tell you they've never had girlfriends. They've had a lot of relationships with men that have gone south, but many of them have not had girlfriends. and this is the first time they have friends, and they like that. They feel very safe, and the conversations can be silly and giddy, or they can be really serious. And the serious ones, you've got all these women who can back them up and say, I've been there, this is what I did. So it's become kind of a coveted job for some of the women who are in the program, because they get so much from each other. It's pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. That's so neat. I take that for granted, having my girlfriends. Mm-hmm. And having those relationships.
Yes. And I have really close girlfriends. Uh-huh. And they see that because they hear it from me all the time. That's something I nurture. As you know, you can't just have friends. You have to nurture those friendships. I've got a group of women. There's 8 of us that we've been close for 20 years. And we make a point of nurturing this friendship. Mm-hmm. And I'm independent. And I, raised my children, and I do own a business, and I'm single, and I've been able to do all this, and they see that because so many of them don't know anything but a bad relationship because so many of them have gotten into this situation because of a man or some terrible trauma. And they see that there's another way to do this, and they start thinking differently. Like I always tell them, if you're in a relationship that's healthy, good for you. But your relationship with yourself and what you do, that's the priority. How you live, how you want to live your life, you making the decisions for you. And that is a compliment to your life if you get to have that. But that's not a necessity, Mm-hmm. And that's just a new way of thinking for so many of them.
Mm-hmm. So are there people who have been there for, say, the whole time you've been open, or is it just a constant rotating door?
It's typically a constant rotating door because after a certain amount of time, they move on to full-time jobs, and as they get closer to graduation, they're spending less time in the facility and more time, in the community, working, paying their bills,
Mm-hmm.
But I do have some long-termers. I have 4 that have been with me for 4 years. They just keep coming back, and they are wonderful success stories. Mm-hmm. And they have gone on to full-time jobs, raising their children and grandchildren, staying clean. But they love coming back and being together. They get real excited about seeing each other because it's kind of the only time they get to see each other. And they're a wonderful resource for the newer people who are there, who get to see what this looks like, mm-hmm. especially if they're doubting it, at some point, because
mm-hmm.
it's a hard program. One of my employees, I'm so proud of all of them, but to give you an idea, during the course of her being in Women in Recovery, and I don't even know how many times she'd been in jail, but it was a lot, and she had a lot of sentences and charges all over. During that process, she has 3 boys who she managed to become a full-time parent of, all 3 of them again, which she had not been able to do before. One of them is at TU on a full scholarship as an engineering student. He's a junior.
Wow.
He has seen...
Talk about breaking the cycle.
Talk about breaking the cycle.
Yeah.
He's seen the work that his mom has done. He's always been a big support to her. And she's shown these children of hers what can be done. The other 2 are still in school. I expect they'll do great things. She and her boyfriend just in January bought a house. They're both employed. He has a similar background. He's clean and sober now. They own a home. They work. They're tax-paying citizens. Yeah. They're raising their children. They're not on welfare. I mean, mm-hmm. that is what we get to see. That is the other side of what can be a really dark cycle, Nobody chooses to be an addict. And a very common theme in this program is trauma. So many of these women have had traumas that most people can't even comprehend. Abuse, rape from the time they were toddlers. And they really don't know a different life. And they don't have a support system. Mm-hmm. So to think that they do this successfully, because that just really shows what is possible.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I love that. And it's so interesting that your background aligns so well with this what
It
you're
is.
doing currently.
I know. I started out being a cookie baker, but really, I feel like I feel like I'm helping the women more than I'm selling cookies. That's the part that I love about my job. I get excited about what I do every day. Sometimes it's tedious. Sometimes it's exhausting, physically exhausting. But I get excited to go in the kitchen and see the women every day. We all have a good time in there. We pick music that's upbeat and we dance and we play in the kitchen and, we do our work. But that part of it has been such a surprise for me. And the hard work is always worth it because the rewards are so rich. And I didn't feel that way anymore in my job before. It just wasn't that for me anymore. I got that thrill from parenting, and I knew I couldn't just be a parent. I had to do something else. So I'm lucky. Like, I found something that I feel like I'm pretty good at, but mostly I'm excited about. And I feel lucky about that. I really do.
That's such a huge blessing to be able to say you still, after 10 years, has it been 10 years?
I still get excited about it.
Every day going in, yeah.
Isn't that something?
I love it.
I do too. It has become a very central part of my life. And my children have gone on to launch from my home. And I was prepared. Like, I still had something for me as they left. And I can still be their mom, and I love that they still call on me for advice, and I love that I'm an integral part of their lives. But I've always said this, your children, as they grow up, they get to choose after they leave. They get to choose what relationships they still want, and you don't take that for granted. And I feel blessed that they choose that this is something they still want to be very much part of our family, and that's really important to them. They make time for that. That's a blessing, is what that is.
Yeah, you're right about them choosing. So I'm an empty nester, newly empty nest, because my son's a freshman in college, but it's been different. But just the perspective of thinking about it's their choice. You're not seeing them daily, so it's, and I'm not wanting to call and bother them all the time. So sometimes, it's nice when the phone rings and,
exactly,
one of my kids is calling me, because I'm thankful for that.
Yes, and I've learned, because I remember being their age and calling home, I didn't want to be on the phone forever with my parents.
Yeah.
I've really learned to keep these conversations short, and they know when they call how happy I am that they've checked in. And they're good about it. But if a little extra time has passed, I like to send a funny little, hey, did you forget? You have a mom that loves to see your face every now and then, and they'll be great to pick up the phone and FaceTime. But it's been really lovely. I mean, I love that.
Yeah. And new stages.
Yeah. New stages, but fun. The older they get, the more fun this is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So before I started recording, you were talking about the places that you are, and I know you bake the cookies fresh, but if you just kind of talk about the ordering situation and then, social media, because I know you're a lot of places, so if you share that.
First of all, I have a website. It's Peace, Love, and Cookies Tulsa. Don't forget the Tulsa. Peace, Love, and Cookies Tulsa. So if you go to my website, you can see the entire menu. We have, I don't even know, maybe 16 different flavors now. Some are vegan, some are gluten-free. I have a little bit of everything. These are my recipes, either things that my mother taught me to do or things I've created that I just think turned out really good. And so you can order online, and I deliver all over Tulsa. But if you just want to go buy cookies, just off the cart, when I have them, you can also follow me on Instagram or Facebook, Peace, Love, and Cookies Tulsa. And any time that I am going to be set up somewhere, I advertise it that day. So if you are following me, you will see where I am. I'm always at Warren Clinic Tower on Thursday. I'm often at Richmond Plaza on Friday. I'm at MAPCO on Wednesday. I'm at Williams-Sonoma a lot on Saturday. I'm at Carlton Landing some. I'll be there for spring break on some of their pop-ups. So I'm kind of everywhere. If you look, then you'll see where I'm going to be and what time I'm going to be there. And I bring a lot of fresh baked cookies and a whole bunch of, probably at least 8 or 9 varieties anytime I go. And you can just come and buy them. They're $11.95 a dozen. So they're packaged really cute. They make a nice gift. And I take cash or credit card. I can take your card on site. And there is no delivery fee for deliveries as long as you're ordering at least 3 dozen. So what a deal.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. And to have them fresh, it's every day.
Yes.
Is, important.
Yes, the dough is made the day before based on what we're doing the next day. So, even the dough is really fresh. It has to refrigerate overnight. That's where all the good chemistry takes place.
Oh, okay.
And then we bake early in the morning, package them. They're delivered everywhere. And then, oftentimes I'm set up selling to the public.
Okay. So let's talk about, too, the growth, because when this started 10 years ago, you did not have a business background, and you have really learned boots on the ground, over this time frame. So if you could kind of share how you've grown, maybe a couple of ways that you've grown. I know you mentioned the cart, but how that's helped you, too.
I started in my home, so obviously limited on how much I could produce.
That's before Kitchen 66 even.
Yes,
or was it?
They were right around that time.
Okay.
Because I talked to them a little bit, but I felt like I was kind of further along in my business than what people were using them for. But there was a law called the Oklahoma Bakers Act, which allowed people to bake goods, cupcakes and cookies and sell them. But there is a limit to how much you can do from your home, and I had surpassed that limit. That's when I started looking for a kitchen. So a really busy day out of my home, if I did 20 dozen cookies, that was a lot out of my own kitchen. To put that into perspective, around the holidays we get the most orders. We've hit 180 dozen on a morning.
Oh, in one day?
One morning.
One morning.
Out of there by 7:30 in the morning.
Wow.
So we really produce a lot. Now, that's a lot of work on my part because I'm the one that makes all the dough. I make it the day before. And, we go in just to load the trays, bake, and package. All the dough is made so we can get in there and just do the work. But we generally will, on the average, make about 10,000 cookies a month. During the holidays, I think in December we hit like 23,000 in 3-week period. So we have taken on some really large corporate orders. We've had orders of 400 or 500 dozen. We're willing to work with just about anything. It's really fun when corporations order and give us gifts. Then I'm getting calls from people who receive them who are fascinated. They like the product. They like the whole mission because everything's stated on the packaging, who this is benefiting, and who doesn't love a giving back component. So that's helped my business grow too. So it was very gradual. I remember the first day baking in their big kitchen and then hiring my first employee. And now, I've got 7 women who work for me, and we kind of rotate based on their schedules and how many people I need on any given day. But yeah, it's really grown. And probably if somebody came in and looked at how I did the business part of it, they'd have a lot to teach me because, I'm not real techie, but I do my best. So, I've just boots on the ground. You learn as you go. You learn what you can do. And I've learned how much I can do, in any given day. And, I also have to pace myself. I don't want to be burned out from this. So I have to give myself a day off or 2 days off. And the lovely thing about owning my own business that's not brick and mortar, if I'm going out of town or whatever, I just go out of town. Nobody's going to get cookies that time. It's not the end of the world. I don't have an overhead to worry about, when I'm gone. So that's been nice.
That's awesome. So do you have I guess the women have certain duties to where you're cognizant of, though, how you're training them so they can go into another opportunity.
That's exactly right. Well, one of the things that happens when women come into the Women in Recovery program, they get their food handler's license and they are in the kitchen. They have a culinary program. And that's one of the first things that happens because, again, it also is therapeutic, but it's also job training skills. Many of them are going to work in the food industry for at least for a while. So I don't take them on until they've been in the program long enough to where they're ready for a job. And by that time, the program is very good at feeding me the ones who seem to like being in the kitchen, who could kind of fit the bill as far as the hours and being really disciplined and responsible. When I hire somebody, I'm almost talking them out of the job. One of the things they really need to know is it's an early morning, and if they're not there or if they're not on time, then it throws everybody off. And I explained to them, nobody feels good at 4 a.m. I mean, I get it. But people, when they take the job, they learn pretty quickly if it's something that's a good fit for them. But I kind of can tell, like, if that's going to be a good fit or not. It's not rocket science. That learning the job is easy for them because they've already been used to working in the kitchen. We all load the trays, which is, scooping dough, that's the very time-consuming part of it. I'm the baker, so I have 2 big ovens. I can bake 20 dozen cookies at one time. So I'm baking and rotating the trays, and they're loading them. And then after all the cookies cool, everybody's got a job for packaging. So, and everyone's they get very self-sufficient. I don't have to go around and say, hey, this needs to be done. Somebody needs to be over here. They just see it and they move to it. It's wonderful. They really, they learn, and they want to do a good job, and they want to keep the job, and I treat them very well. I treat them like family. I surprise them with Starbucks coffees, and once a year before Thanksgiving, I treat all my employees to a really lovely dinner in town, somewhere that they normally would not get to go. And we have this wonderful big evening together. Everybody gets dressed up, and I take them and I tell them they can order anything they want off the menu, and we have a big, pre-holiday crazy dinner. I give bonuses to my employees at the end of the year. So, I mean, they're treated well, they're paid well, but I expect a lot from them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's okay, because out in the world,
that's
even after it's the whole launching.
That's right.
That's right. I think you help them in understanding what they need to live up to also.
And when they mess up, I mean, some of them mess up in the program and have to go sit in jail for a little bit longer and see if they can come back. I'll hire them again. This is just part of the path. It's not like you mess up once and you're not going to be there. They know. I'll work with them. Like, I want them to succeed. So when those things happen, they know my door is open for them, but the expectation is what it is, and they have to prove themselves. So.
Okay. Very awesome that you give them second chances too.
Oh yeah, and thirds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they're trying, why shut the door?
Yeah. Right. Oh, exactly. Okay, so my theme this year is grow more in 2024. I think there's always room at any level for people to experience growth. And so I have found with this podcast, people who are successful are still looking for ways to grow and working on growth. So I'm wondering your perspective on what you're doing to grow either personally or professionally this year.
That's a really good question. I'm always looking how to grow my business. I'm always looking for good places to be. I'm always trying to reach out and tell people what I do in case they don't know. When I work at the cart, I make sure they understand what this business is and how they can order. So I'm always trying to grow my business, and I feel like it's been steady. We do a little bit more each year. And personally, I mean, just more of the same. This is really important to me, what I do. I want to still enjoy it. I want to feel excited about it. One thing I've really learned in the process, I have to take care of myself. Mm-hmm. I can't do this job if I don't take care of myself. And I have learned to say no. So when I know that there's a certain day of the week I'm going to be off and somebody is asking for something, if I really can't do it, I have to say no. I have to give myself a break too. It is pretty heavy labor as far as in the hours I put in. We're there in the kitchen early, 4:30 to 7:30 in the morning, but then I'm setting up a cart somewhere and selling cookies, and then I come home and I still have to make all the dough for the next day. And then I order all the supplies and do all the advertising. I mean, there's a lot of facets of this job that keep me really busy. So I guess just from a personal level, it's really becoming aware of what I need so that I can stay excited and still do a good job without hurting myself.
Burning yourself down,
yes.
burning yourself out.
It's easy to do. Yes.
Okay, yeah. You're smart, and I feel like that comes with age too. You get a little wiser on just your priorities and being able to say no that with things that don't align with where you're going in life.
Yes. Saying no is always okay.
Yeah, it is. Because there's plenty of opportunities.
I tend to be a people pleaser, and I hate to say no to people.
I am the same.
But it's a good thing to do when you need it. So, I try to make things work for people, but at the same time, I come first, and I've learned I have to come first if I'm going to keep this up.
Well, and I'm glad that that's your mindset, because by putting yourself first, then you can also help these ladies.
Yes.
You need to have this business and helping these ladies, everything that you're doing.
Well,
because
and
there's
I need
people
the
who
business
rely.
too. This is how I earn a living. It's how I can do the things I do for my children. And so it's important. I mean, I work because I have to, but I'm lucky because I work in something I actually really love to do. There's going to be a point where it becomes too physically demanding, but I feel like I'm going to have options to keep this going. Letting other people take on more responsibilities than they do now. I literally have a couple of employees who are often saying, if you're ever going to get to the point where you want to let go more of this, I want it. So I know that someday is a potential, to keep this program going, to keep the business going, and maybe I become more of a mentor and helper and not take on so much responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that you have those options. And it's interesting that you're kind of hearing that from some people right now. So you can, take note of it and keep that in your mind as time goes on, because you might be taking those people up on it. But not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So, okay. Well, thank you so much for visiting with me.
Thank you.
I love what you're doing, and you're just absolutely incredible. The cookies are delicious. The premise of what you're doing is incredible. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap on this week's episode. I want to thank you for listening to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. It means the world to me, and I'd love to connect with you. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Sharing Passion and Purpose, and Twitter at Passion Sharing. Also, if you like this podcast, it would mean a lot to me for you to subscribe, rate, and review it. And as always, all my show notes will be available on my website, sharingpassionandpurpose.com.